Hello there and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, the founder of Utrema Limited. And today I wanted to talk about an often overlooked crop that I think should be given a second look. And it's lamb's lettuce. Now, traditionally, lamb's lettuce is a crop that is sort of like an Ersatz lettuce, where you grow it in winter and it's an alternative leafy green for when normally you couldn't get things like lettuce in the supermarkets. So before there were mass greenhouses and heated greenhouses, people would eat lettuce in the summer and then they'd have to resort to lamb's lettuce in the winter. And it's called lamb's lettuce because it's a derogatory term. It's only fit for lambs to eat most of the time. But it's actually a really interesting crop that has a number of interesting features that I think make it a really interesting crop to look again at, especially in hydroponics. So what can we say about lamb's lettuce? Well, the tabs I had open have closed. Its scientific name is Valerianella locusta. It's also known as mâché, I think in French, is it? Or corn salad. But really, it's interesting because the first reason I think it needs another look is because there are no other crops coming from this family. All the other plants in this family are shrubs or ornamentals, things like honeysuckle. It's in the family Caprifoliaceae. And there are no crops in the order of this plant, so one above family. And so really, it's a really interesting crop because if it's the only crop from that family and that order, then potentially it's got loads of interesting nutraceutical chemicals in there that you won't find in other crops. So potentially it's got a lot of added benefit than you would say, if you eat broccoli, well, it's got the same active ingredients and nutraceuticals as you'll find in cabbage, as you'll find in kohlrabi, all the brassicas, whereas this one is completely on its own, in its own order. So a bit like pine nuts. I always say pine nuts are interesting from that perspective because they're the only crop that you actually eat from the gymnosperms, for example. Maybe if you eat yew berries without the seeds in, which I often do when I'm going through a church graveyard, I'll eat some yew fruit. Back to lamb's lettuce anyway. Corn salad has a characteristic nutty flavour, dark green colour, soft texture, and it's a salad green, so it can be mixed in there. Includes 3 times as much vitamin C as lettuce, and beta carotene, B6, iron, potassium, and so it's a really interesting crop from a nutritional perspective. Now, and the second reason I think it should be looked again from hydroponics is because it's not grown commercially, not because people won't eat it, because they will when it's mixed in with a salad and things like that. The reason it's not grown commercially is because it grows very, very close to the ground. And so you get soil contamination if you're growing it in a field. And the way the leaves grow, the rosettes, you can often get soil growing into the leaves and get contamination there. So not only does it look bad if you've got soil in your salad and it's difficult to wash, there's a potential for contamination. A very, very low-lying rosette close to the soil is potential for all sorts of microbial and other sorts of contamination. Now, if you're growing hydroponically, then you can remove this and you could potentially get really good results. It's a very, very fast-growing plant in hydroponics, potentially, and like a leafy green, you don't have to resort to flowers and things like that. It's not a commodity crop, so you're not competing on really small margins like you would with lettuce and tomatoes and cucumbers. So you can charge a premium for an unusual crop because it's not a commodity. And then the third reason I think it should be looked again at hydroponic growers is that it's a crop, as I said, it's a winter alternative to lettuce. So it will thrive in cold conditions. So if you've got an unheated greenhouse, an unheated grow room, somewhere where you're struggling to heat it to the temperatures required for tomatoes, cucumbers, things like that. If you're in a northern latitude or very high altitude and you're struggling to get heat in there, we said that heat is one of the major contributing costs for hydroponics and greenhouses. Potentially lamb's lettuce is a good alternative to look at. So the third reason I think that lamb's lettuce is a good one to look at. Another good reason is that although it's a highly unusual crop, it has been eaten since, well, at least the 16th century here in the UK. And so it's not considered a novel crop. So you don't need to worry about falling foul of European novel food regulations. So there's another good reason to try out lamb's lettuce. Now, what are the downsides of growing lamb's lettuce? The nutrition won't have been optimized for it because it's completely unrelated to all of the leafy green crops. So you would have to spend some time looking at the best nutrition, best grow conditions. But there's some intellectual property you can own and have a moat around your business that other people can't compete easily with. It's susceptible to some fungal issues in humid conditions. So downy mildew, botrytis can be a problem. But, name me a crop where that isn't the case for leafy green. Obviously, limited consumer demand if it's niche, and not many people are going to go, oh yeah, lamb's lettuce, I love that. It might be an acquired taste, and nutty tastes are often acquired. Not one for if you're growing in really warm conditions. And if you're not growing it right, then it could be very slow growing. And as we said, it's sensitive to contamination of the leaves. So if you can't control leaf splashing of liquids around your grow room, then it won't be good for you. It's sensitive to leaf damage. So when you break the leaves, they will reduce the shelf life considerably. And so mechanically harvesting it, could you automate the harvesting, or is it too difficult? Does it require manual harvesting because it's such a delicate crop? And how long is the shelf life? Potentially a low shelf life. But if you're growing it for use in a restaurant or something else, then you're not going to be selling lamb's lettuce in a supermarket, are you, anytime soon? A number of studies have been done looking at hydroponic cultivation. DWC systems have been used successfully. It responds well to silicon enrichment as well. So that's be good to know what the optimum silicon concentration is. And certainly hydroponic grown lamb's lettuce had a much longer shelf life than those in soil grown conditions. Some studies have looked at it for biofortification with selenium, a big one for lambs themselves, to prevent them getting, what's the big disease that selenium deficiency causes in sheep? Is it dropsy? Have I gone mad? Let me Google that. Yep, I have gone mad. It's white muscle disease. That's what it causes. So potential for biofortification there. What else has lamb's lettuce been used for? It's been looked at in hydroponics in the Low Countries, so Belgium, Holland, and there is sort of, there's history of growing alternative leafy veggies such as, what's chicory called? Endive, the blanched endive. So it has had some good research, but mainly in DWC. So that's more of an issue, more of a wide-scale system in North America, whereas in the UK, Europe, potential can we grow it with NFT, which is more industrial over here. So some unanswered questions when it comes to lamb's lettuce, or as it's known by its scientific name, Valerianella locusta. It's a pretty looking plant. It looks a lot like watercress. So you could, if you were struggling to get watercress, which again is a nutty type of plant, if you're struggling to grow watercress, if there's a shortage of watercress in your area, then I think lamb's lettuce would be a good alternative. It is prone to bolting in warm temperatures as well, so just bear that in mind. But yeah, lamb's lettuce, a good one to look at for your hydroponic setup if you're starting up. If you found this podcast useful, please leave an Apple podcast review if you're on Apple. If you're not listening to us on Apple, then still do follow the podcast. Don't bother leaving a podcast review because it doesn't help us promote the podcast in any way whatsoever. But do check out utrema.co.uk, where you'll find our interesting fertilizers, novel biostimulants, and organic biopesticides that all can be used in hydroponics. And you won't find any of the technology formulations, unique technology in any other product available from any other supplier. So definitely want to look at not your run-of-the-mill hydroponic ferts and inputs. Thank you very much for listening. Until tomorrow, that's been Hydroponics Daily. Goodbye.